So I'm like, oh man, I need to kind of hurry up. So I'm going a little too fast, right? I'm used to driving my Porsche. That the brakes on that thing are insane, and I'm pushing the truck a little too much. I started to get a little bit of a brake fade. You could smell the brakes burning like pretty bad. There was a section where I hit the brakes and there was literally no brakes. Kind of scary, and it's also one of those things where you're like, what was I thinking? It's kind of like one of those gut punch situations where, what a doofus I am for driving this truck like a sports car. And I just had all these emotions, I'm selling the truck. As soon as I get back, I'm getting rid of the camper. I need to put a lighter setup on the back of here. I'm done camping altogether. Like I'm never going camping again. So we went into Sedona. This is where the biggest heartbreak happened for me for the trip, man. And I realized that it, in fact, deleted all of the photos from the beginning of the trip up until that moment. That was like the biggest blow for me, right? And at that point, dude, I'm not gonna lie, that was like another thing where I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And I really, really struggled taking my camera out of the bag after that moment. I kind of sat there the next morning I woke up and I opened up my journal and I just kind of wrote down a bunch of things. At the end of the day, at that moment when I was writing in my journal, that's what I kind of realized is that I need to do things for me because that was definitely a life-changing moment.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Where the Pavement Ends to episode 7. Today we are going to be talking about Terrill's 2-month trip around the US. This is actually the longest overland trip that he's taken in a new to him, but not really new to him truck. It's the second gen Tundra with his slide-in four-wheel camper. Terrill's going to share some lessons learned that he gained along the way, some frustrations and failures, if you want to call them that, and, the takeaways from his trip. So stay tuned to learn more. I haven't heard about any of this. You gave me a little bit snippet in a WhatsApp voice message, but I'm eager to hear
Yeah.
about your trip. So I'll let you kind of share what you want to share, and I'll just ask questions as we go along.
Yeah, so I'll take it back a little bit. So when I got out of the military, I had plans to take like a 3-month long road trip, but I wasn't really able to do that just because the timing didn't line up right with my wife's work. And then also I had a lot of medical appointments coming out of the military that I had to prioritize. So I had to put the road trip on hold. But this past there towards kind of I don't know, probably the end of September this year, we decided, Burju and I started talking about it and we said, hey, let's just go for it. We might not be able to do the full 3 months, but we can definitely do 2 months. So I just came back from a 2-month long road trip, and this has been a trip that I've always wanted to take. A lot of miles because we did drive a lot.
And in a new to you truck, roughly too, right?
Yeah, so this truck so I got this truck. It's a 2020 Tundra. I went back to an older, Tundra.
Mhm,
This truck when I first got it, it had 29,000 miles on it, and I got it in August.
mhm.
And I've taken a few trips. I forget how many. Right now it's got 43,000 miles on it.
Oh,
So,
wow. Wow.
yeah, so we went up to Yosemite. I've always wanted to see Yosemite, and it was definitely one of the highlights of the trip. I think that place is one of the places where you go and you're just, in awe of the scenery, and also knowing the fact that Alex Honnold did a free solo climb of what was it? I think it's El Capitan there. Um,
It's crazy.
but yeah, but just seeing this place, they call it the valley for a reason because there's mountains, high peaks all around you. Yeah, I've always wanted to go there, and I really, really, really am so glad that I was finally able to see it. And then from there, we made our way into Sequoia, and this is where I had like the biggest kind of speed bump, I'll say, like hurdle in the trip. We spent a little bit too much time inside the park before the sun was setting, so I'm trying to speed up, making my way to this overlook, and I can already see that the sun is kind of setting. So I'm like, oh man, I need to kind of hurry up. So I'm going a little too fast, right? I'm used to driving my Porsche. That the brakes on that thing are insane, and I'm pushing the truck a little too much. And of course, this is a Tundra. I've got oversized tires. I've got this big 1,000-pound camper on the back of it.
Mhm.
And I started to get a little bit of a brake fade. And I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that, but it's kind of scary. And it's also one of those things where you're like, like, oh man, like, what was I thinking? It's kind of like one of those gut punch situations where, yeah, it could have been really, really bad. Luckily, we got to the overlook. When we got there, that's when I realized that the brakes were really fading because as soon as we got out of the vehicle, you could smell the brakes burning like pretty bad.
Mhm.
That brakes burning smell.
Yeah.
So I didn't get there in time to photograph, of course. So we basically just went ahead and kind of proceeded down to the campsite. And that's when I really could tell. There was a section where I hit the brakes and there was literally no brakes.
Mm.
And I'm coming down off down a mountain. I don't know what the elevation descent was, but at first it was kind of scary. But then basically I put the truck in forward drive. I put it in low range just to try to creep down without pressing the brakes because at this point, there was no brakes. The brakes were pretty much gone. We pulled over a couple times just to let them cool down a little bit. But yeah, at the same time, it was it was scary at first, but then to me, it was kind of frustrating, and I just had these like roller coasters of emotions of like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, if I had a better truck, this wouldn't have happened. I had plans on changing out the lines on the brakes to steel lines before the
Mhm.
trip, and I put that off. I said, no, it'll be fine. Also, I'm thinking like, what a doofus I am for driving this truck like a sports car thinking that it'll be alright, and I just, like, had, like, all these emotions, like, like, I went from, like, I'm selling the truck as soon as I get back to, like, I'm getting rid of the camper, I need to put a lighter setup on the back of here to, what, I'm done camping altogether, like, I'm never going camping again, and I'm just like, "Why am I even" after the fact, you think back through it, talking things through to my wife, she's more logical about things than I am,
Mhm.
but yeah, you kinda realize, like, "Alright, yeah, that's not the way to be." The next morning, we woke up and the brakes were working fine, they had cooled off and stuff enough, it was fine at that point, and then we proceeded to camp in more places, right? From there, we did some time we spent a little bit more time in Sequoia, but yeah, we eventually make our way down to southern Arizona, and I would say this was like a highlight of the trip. We went to Saguaro National Park, and we did some camping and some hiking down in there, and that's always a beautiful area there. But yeah, at this point, we're trying to decide if we wanna head into, like, Big Bend National Park or kinda stay in southern Arizona, but the weather started to warm up, so we decided that we should go north. So we went into Sedona. This is where the biggest, like, heartbreak happened for me for the trip, man.
Mhm.
So up until this point, I'm, mainly taking photographs. This is the purpose of the trip. I'm going from place to place just because I wanna photograph. That was my drive. That was the motivation for the trip. So I get into Sedona. We're staying in a hotel for like 4 days because she's got some work that she needs to really focus on. So we decided let's just get, a hotel there in town, kinda hang out. So the first night, I open up my laptop, and I'm gonna download some of my photos that I'd previously taken, and my Lightroom tells me that I need to update it. I go to update my Lightroom, it updates fine. And then once it updates, I realize that somehow it deleted photos.
Mm.
And I'm like, "Alright, this is probably not good. This is not cool." So I double check it. I turn everything off. I power it back up just because maybe there's just a glitch with Lightroom. And I realized that it, in fact, deleted photos. It deleted all of the photos from the beginning of the trip up until that moment. And that was kind of like, at first, I was like, all right, I can probably figure out how to recover the photos. It's not that big of a deal. But then after a couple of hours of trying to figure it out, downloading software to, um, to relocate the files and stuff, I'm realizing that it's not going to work. And then that was like the biggest blow for me right there. And
Mhm.
like another I don't know, like another, strikeout, right? Like, oh man, I lost because some of these photos I'd planned on setting up an Etsy page and putting some of these photos on there. Some of these photos I would wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, set up the camera, kind of recon a spot, and spend hours dedicated to this one photo, and then a couple of more hours dedicated to just editing the photo and stuff like that. So, dude, I'm not gonna lie, like that was like another thing where I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And I really, really struggled taking my camera out of the bag after that moment. From there, we went to Valley of the Gods, and we we got there kinda late in the evening, and there was a nice sunset, but I didn't even really take my camera out of the bag. I didn't have any motivation at that point to photograph. I was kind of on, like, another bitter moment of the trip. I was just like, "You know what?" I was kinda ready to go home. I was like, "Maybe I shouldn't be out here camping and stuff." But again, I kinda sat there the next morning I woke up and I opened up my journal and I just kinda, like, wrote down a bunch of things. And some of the things that I kinda, like, summarize it, you know, once you spend a little bit of time thinking about things and just kinda letting it marinate, then you have a better perspective of it. But, but I what it made me realize, and this is kinda like the gist of where my New Year's resolution or new motto is coming into place, is that, this whole up until that point, the whole trip was only about photographing and being able to either post that photo to social media or post that photo or use that photo on my website or something to that effect. It wasn't for me, right? It was for something else. And I realized that, like, I asked myself, if I didn't have my camera and if I wasn't photographing these places, what would I be doing, or how would I approach the situation? How would it be different? And I realized that some of the places that I went to, or some of the places that I bypassed, I would have gone back to those places and explored those areas even if I didn't have my camera. And because I'm focused on photographing them, I either bypass areas or I only went to the scenic locations, and I missed out on some probably seeing some cool spots. So at the end of the day, at that moment when I was writing in my journal, that's what I kind of realized, is that I need to do things for me. I don't need to do things for actions or for other things in my life. I need to do it for myself. So that's why that motivation to kind of do things for myself kind of stemmed from that. Because, like I said, a lot of the places that we were going to was strictly for photography. Um, that was why we went to Sedona. We love Sedona, and we love going on hikes in Sedona. But I mainly was thinking about it from a photography point, like, "Okay, I don't wanna go over here and do this hike because I wanna photograph in this area. This is a better area for sunset," even though that hike would have probably been better for us. I decided to go to that other spot, so that's the kinda gist of it. But basically, after Valley of the Gods area, we eventually made our way into Southern Colorado and then down into New Mexico, where after that, we started heading over to North Carolina to kinda spend time with my family. And I'll say this, man, the highlight of the trip, the whole entire trip, right? The highlight for me was we met my family in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach. That's about 2 hours from where I grew up in North Carolina. My mom and my sister and them, we all got a beach house there that we rented for a couple days while we went and explored Myrtle Beach. But my son, he drove out one day, and we spent about, I don't know, probably we didn't really know what to do, so we decided just to we linked up with him. He drove out, we linked up with him, and then we went to the beach, and we just basically walked on the beach for, like, a couple of hours, it felt like, but we were just chatting and talking. And that was probably the highlight of the whole entire trip, man. Like, just having a good conversation with my son Jaden and just talking about life, catching up, 'cause he's basically an adult now, and he's living his own life, and it's always kinda cool trying to share some of those moments with him. That was the highlight of the trip right there. When I think back of all the things that I did on the trip, just being able to spend some time with my son out there on the beach, just walking, and it was just us it's just a solid quality time right there, man.
Mhm.
That was probably the highlight of the trip. But yeah, man, I'm sure there's a lot of things I didn't cover in this there's people that are probably wondering like, "Well, man, what like, where did you go there? Did you go here?" I'm sure we can share some photos of some of the places
Mhm.
that we went to. But yeah, in the gist of it, man, to kinda, like, summarize it, that was basically the some of the low points and the highlights of the trip that we took. But I will say this, I'm not selling the camper. I'm keeping it. I've already decided, like, "Hey, man, what was I thinking?" Like, I've already got some more trips that I wanna take. Like, mentally, like, I realized that sometimes you have to have those types of situations to kinda make you really see the main point. And I feel like the main point for me is, hey, man, you gotta live your life for yourself. Don't try to live it for other means or purposes.
Yeah, so there were, summarize what I heard. I mean, this was the longest trip you've done,
Yeah.
right? 2 months.
Yep.
You did it during the holidays, so you left right before Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, we
and
left on,
then
like, November 11th.
yeah, around November 11th. Your wife has a full-time job, so she's got the pressure of, meeting deadlines and dealing with stress while you're on the road.
Yeah.
Um, this is still a new truck to you, even though
Mhm.
you've had what is this, a 3rd gen, 2nd gen Tundra?
I mean,
3rd
technically,
gen,
it's a
right?
2nd gen.
2nd gen. So you've had a
Yeah.
2nd gen Tundra before, so you're pretty familiar with the truck, but it's still a different truck than the one you had before. So you were
Yeah.
learning it on this, sort of overland trip, this 2-month expedition. You experienced a mechanical failure with it,
Mhm.
and then you experienced a gear failure well, I guess a software failure with Lightroom. Um, Yeah, and then you had to drive cross country to be with your family to meet that deadline as well. I can understand, you know, this holidays can be stressful as they by themselves, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I can understand how you would have reacted the way you did. But I'm just curious, like, we talk about on some of the podcasts, topics like mechanical sympathy. We talk about payload with our trucks. I'm wondering, just as I was hearing you, if you're going to upgrade to like power brakes on your rig. Like, is that something that you wrote down in your journal as the next upgrade? It's definitely something that I think about with the Ranger, since I have that project I'm on there now. Um, so yeah, so I'm just wondering, like, can you share, besides like, doing the things for yourself, if there were any other learnings that you had on this trip?
Well, I mean, just speaking back at going back to the brakes things, I probably won't upgrade to power brakes because I think the brakes on the truck are fine. What I am gonna
Mhm,
do is I'm gonna change out the lines to steel lines.
mhm,
I think that'll make a good enough difference um 'cause like I said, the brakes are fine. Here's what it boils down to, right? It boils down to me just taking a like, slowing down, right? That's
mhm,
basically what it boils down to, is like, if I like, at that moment when I was coming down the mountain, there was parts of me were like, "Hey, man, you missed the sunset. Don't worry about it. Like, you're not gonna make it there in time. Don't try and push it." And also in my mind, the other part of me was like, "No, you can make it. Just push it a little bit more. It's fine." Even if I had power brakes, I think that it would've still put me in a situation that I shouldn't have been in, so
Sometimes we, like, chase this image of what a good trip is. Like, you need to
Mhm.
come back with all of these photos of the many different places with the cool sunrises and sunsets, and that sometimes just puts undue pressure on us and takes us away from actually being present in the moment and actually enjoying the trip.
Yeah.
I mean, you've definitely got great photography skills. Selfishly, I would have loved to have seen all the different places and photos that you took, because I know that when you go out, you're gonna come back with some really solid photos, and it inspires and motivates me. But to your point, I think sometimes that fuel can be for someone else rather than for you, for us.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good solid learning from the trip. I know, even, like, during our Lake Superior, this is not to kick you when you're down or something like that. But I know, like, on our Lake Superior trip, there were moments where, it was like, "Hey, let's just stay here another night," or, "Let's take the time to do that hike." And when we were on the Canadian side, and I'm not saying that I regret anything, but, to your point, I think sometimes when we create these schedules, there's more focus on the schedule than actually on, like, the adventure. And it's okay to pivot and change things when you're actually on the trip. And I know we do a really good job of that. Like, I know on our trip together in August of 2020, and even in Lake Superior, we did the same thing, right? Or any of the trips that we go, uh, we have an itinerary, but the itinerary is just a guide. And then depending on how we feel, we make changes along the way, and it ends up being
Yeah,
a great trip. So,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, but that's cool, man. I'm glad to hear that you're keeping the truck. When I heard that on the WhatsApp, I was like, "Man, am I losing, like, my lifelong partner here?" Like, our friendship
Yeah.
is built on those campfires, and it's built on those sunsets. It's built on those remote places. Like, that's the foundation that keeps that keeps the two of us together. Same with your photography, man. Like, I'm back into photography because of you. Like,
Yeah.
you motivated and inspired me to get back into it. And I think these conversations and these podcasts are also motivating me to just try to be better at the video making that I'm doing with some of the other types of videos on the channel now. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're keeping up with it, and that you had that great reminder about how just those simple moments walking with your son on the beach are really what it's all about, you know?
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And, and also too, just, these trips, it's funny when I was, like, maybe 2 weeks into the trip, I made a phone call to a school that I'm trying to take college classes, and the school advisor was like, "Hey, where are you at? Can you come in and take some, like, do some meetings in person?" And I was just like, "Hey, unfortunately, I'm actually on a road trip right now," and I was explaining to him I'm not gonna be back, like, until, like, the beginning of the year, the beginning of 2026. And he was just like, "Well, man," he's like, "Well, that's awesome, I'm glad to hear," and he was just like, I'm eager to hear how this trip changes you, when you get back, because I had a meeting with him when I got back. He's my advisor for some of the classes, and at the moment, when he said that, I'm like, "Changes, man." I was like, "This trip's not gonna change me that much?" But now looking back at it, I'm like, "Man, little did I know, like, how much
Mhm.
it would just, like, change me." But like I said, I think that being able to say I'm doing things for myself now, and having that realization that I learned from this trip, and who knows, this trip is still kinda fresh in me, so maybe as I go back through and read some of my journal things, and kinda reflect on the trip, it'll change me even more. But yeah, man, I mean, we'll see. The next big trip that I've always wanted to do is to do, like, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to do this, but I
Mhm.
wanna do the Key West up to Alaska, do something like that. But yeah, immensely, that trip will be for myself, and it won't be for photography, I'll say that.
I don't know if you've read these 3 books that I'm about to mention. One of them is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. The
I haven't
second
read
one
that one.
is Big Magic, and then the third one is The War of Art.
Yeah, I've read The War of Art, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
all 3 of those have, like, a common thread, and that is, there's this invisible hand out there. Inspiration is basically, it encircles us, which is what I have on my website. And funny, I that was my kind of theme on the website without having read these books first.
Mhm.
But as I read them, it was like a validation and an affirmation that what I was feeling is a shared feeling across artists, creative people. There's that inspiration is basically a field, and it's visiting us, right? And if you
Yeah.
don't act on that inspiration, it just moves on to the next person. And,
Mhm.
the word inspiration is to breathe into. And so
Yeah.
that's really what it's doing. It's like breathing in this inspiration to you so that you can breathe it back out or breathe it into something else. And I love what Rick Rubin says, and where he's like, you know, whenever you feel that sense of inspiration, whether it's with photography, whether it's with your journaling, first comes you, first comes inspiration, then comes
Mhm.
you, then comes the audience. And in Big Magic, and also Rick Rubin talks about this, Big Magic is basically saying, make art for art's sake. Don't make it
Yeah.
for anyone else, just make it for art's sake. And
Mhm.
and then all three books say rejection is just part of the process,
Yeah.
And so I love that because there's nothing for you to prove. There's just only for things for you to express. And it's expressed through your lens. So that's the art. That's the making art of it. It's you're sharing with the world how Terrill sees the world through your photography. And
Mhm.
like even with this trip, like these failures, that's dynamic intelligence, right? That frustration. That's just bringing you into the awareness of who you are on these trips. And, we've talked a lot about that overland build
Yeah.
philosophy and how these trips, they're really about bringing in new information about who you are. And, sometimes we think that that information stays in the trip, but as you're describing here, it really transcends so many other things in our life.
Yeah.
You stepped out of your comfort zone. You did your longest trip, in your vehicle for the first time. I'm sure, like I said, your wife having to work full time brought its own, challenges and making sure you're in a safe, comfortable place where she can work and stay focused and concentrate. All of that stuff's learning. And yeah, I love that you experienced those hardships on this trip because I think it also shows not everything always goes our way,
Mhm.
but that's the beauty of it. How
Yeah.
we respond to it matters just as much as what our expectation was of the trip before. It actually matters more. And then what's the learning that you bring back that you apply to your life after the trip? So I think you've embodied everything that like we talk about on this channel about the adventure, exploration, and discovery and why it's so important to put yourself out there and have these experiences. So yeah, man,
Yeah.
I love everything that you're sharing and I'm excited for how you apply this in your life moving forward. And I hope you keep picking up that camera, man, because like I said, I want to keep taking pictures alongside with you when we go on these trips together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. But one of the things that once I kind of had that issue or that little speed bump with the photography thing, um, I kind of lost track of. I kind of had to shift the purpose of the trip, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to be about photography because I wasn't going to places to photograph anymore. So I kind of shifted it, and I wanted to be about learning. So we tried to go to as many national parks that we could to kind of learn more about the area. We went to a lot of places in that area there, particularly Flagstaff, and then also up into even over into southern Colorado. They have a lot of cliff dwellers. So they have a lot of Native American tribes that back in that time and era, they basically spent time living on the side of cliffs. So we tried to visit as many of those that we could, and it was really, really cool. That was also another highlight of the trip, is just seeing how people lived in
Yeah.
those days in that time frame. If I probably would have never went to those places and experienced those areas if it wasn't for what happened. Like if I was trying to focus on photography, I would have never gone to those areas. So I'm just trying to say that I appreciated that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good time on the trip.
Well, we got that trip planned to Big Bend in April. So I'm hoping you
Yeah.
can tag. I know you got stuff going on, but if things change, that
Yeah.
spot's always open for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If I'm able to make it, that'll be a good time, man. I'm looking forward to, even if I don't make it to that, whenever the next time is.
Anyways, man, well, cool. Well, thanks for joining this episode of the podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and take some lessons learned from Terrill. It's a 2-month trip around the U.S. And yeah, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to get out to where the pavement ends. Thanks for tuning in.